Do you want to run playtest sessions that both you and your testers can actually enjoy? Well, here are my best 5 1/4 tips on how to make that happen. Number 1, light a vanilla scented candle in the room where you're going to be testing your game. Research shows that vanilla, the smell of vanilla, actually boosts creativity, and so by simply lighting a candle, you can kind of get the creative juices flowing. Also, if you have a house full of kids like I do, the scented candle can help mask some of the maybe less desirable smells that might be floating around your home. And that gets to the bigger idea of controlling the environment that you're testing in. You want to make sure that it doesn't have very many distractions, that it's not too hot or too cold, that it's an enjoyable place to actually playtest your game. And so some places just aren't as good as others. Now, you take what you can get, obviously, but a game store might be a little bit loud. A convention might have a lot going on. And so if you can kind of control the environment a little bit more, it's going to create a better experience for you, for your playtesters, and you might end up with a much better understanding of how your game is actually working. But definitely trust me on the vanilla candle. It makes a big difference, believe it or not. Number 2, have a plan going in. Never forget that there's a huge difference between playing your game and playtesting your game. You want to go into this thinking like a scientist. You want to have a hypothesis, have a question in mind that you're trying to answer, and then you're paying attention to the information and the data, and you're able to focus on that one thing that you're testing, that you're trying to figure out. Does combat take too long and create too much downtime for the other players? Is the game too lucky? Does the economy create some weird choices that you aren't actually trying to create in the gaming experience? Whatever it is, think through, what am I actually trying to figure out? What am I testing for? Feel free to take notes on other things that you're noticing, but definitely have one main thing that you're testing. Go in with a plan in mind. Number 3, shorter is better. Basically, playtest just long enough to get the data and the information that you need to fix or improve that one thing that you're looking at. I mean, no one ever got super upset because a playtest didn't last very long, but they will definitely get frustrated if a playtest drags on and on and on, especially if it's early and it's not fun yet, if the game is maybe a little bit broken here or there, the mechanisms haven't quite been figured out. Shut it down. And make sure your playtesters know early, like before you even start playing, that at any time they can raise their hand and say, hey, I'm done. Hey, I'm not having any fun anymore. And then you call it. Don't feel like you have to just grind it out, especially if the game isn't fun yet. Now, obviously, as the game gets later on in development, you know, if it's a 2-hour game, you're going to have to play it for 2 hours to see the full experience. But don't feel like you have to do that, especially early on when the game's still kind of figuring itself out. Your playtesters will thank you. They'll be much more likely to keep playtesting your games over and over again if you're respectful of their time. So just remember that. Shorter is often better. Number 4, provide a snack before playtesting and a meal after playtesting. On the front end, you want a snack that's kind of light and not super messy, so they don't get, you know, stuff all over your prototype that you just spent 4 hours putting together. And you want it to be a snack because you don't want it to be super filling. You don't want them just sitting there with the itis and digesting and not being able to actually engage. But you also want them kind of to have the energy, the mental energy, you know, have a little sugar in there, maybe a little caffeine. That way they can get a really solid playtest in and understand what's going on and that their brain is good to go. And then after the playtest, thank them with a meal, whether it's pizza or if you want to go the extra mile, and I recommend going the extra mile, ordering something or cooking something really, really tasty, really delicious, because again, you want to thank these people for their time and their effort, and they're helping you make a better game. And then also you want to give them a little bit of that dopamine rush to go, hey, I really enjoyed it last time and we had that delicious food afterwards. Yeah, I'll come back over to your house and help you test the latest version of your game, and it creates this wonderful cycle. And so definitely give them some snacks before you play, give them some really good food after you play. I promise they'll keep coming back for more than just the gameplay. Number 5, use a quick and simple feedback form to capture certain information. You don't want it to be too much. You don't want these big blocks of text for people to write out paragraphs. Most people won't do that. They won't even know what to say, and you're going to be having conversations anyway and taking down notes. So you want to have some kind of form, usually just a 1-page, just on the front form, where you can capture certain information. A few things that are really good to capture: their names, just in case you want to thank them in the rulebook when the game comes out later. Maybe you want to ask their email address in case they want more information as the game progresses, as it goes into a crowdfunding campaign. You might want to track, is this their first time playing the game, or how many times have they played? Because I've run into a situation where one player has just dominated a game. You're like, oh, maybe this faction or this hero, this character, maybe it's broken or overpowered, but then you look at the data and you're like, oh no, this player has played it 17 times and everyone else at the table has played it once. So it's not the faction or the hero, it's just that this player has played the game a lot more, they understand how it works more. And so let me not just completely mess up my balance based on that information. And another thing I like to have is a section of questions with a very simple rating system that I use, and I use the Goldilocks method. And what that means is it too hot, is it too cold, or is it just right? So for example, the game length. Was it too short where you didn't really have time to do what you wanted, or is it too long and just kind of drug on, or is it just right? Same thing with downtime, same thing with luck versus skill. Is there too much dice rolling? Is there way too much skill where there's just the game is solved? Whatever it is, I'm looking for that just right, circle there in the middle, and capturing that data. And it's simple, and sometimes you run into issues when you have like a 1 to 10 rating system. I've seen 1 to 7, where one person's 5 might be another person's 8, and you don't really know what's going on. And so if you use a number system, I suggest like 0 to 2, like limit it as much as possible, because you're going to get a lot more consistent data that you can actually understand and read. But ultimately, have some kind of form where you can take in data, take in feedback, maybe have some sections where people can write down questions, or they can have that option to write the long form kind of stuff if they want to. But from what I've seen over my time as a game designer, my experience, most of the time people just want something quick, easy, simple, and then they fill it out, they hand it back, and then you can track the information, track the data over time. It helps make your game better. And number 5 1/4, tell people it's your friend's game that you're testing. This can be really helpful to get just the most honest feedback out of your playtesters, because, most people want to be polite. They don't want to be mean or overly critical or overly negative to the person that made the game when they're sitting at the table. But if they think that person's not there, then they might be more likely to be open and honest and just tell you the absolute truth and give you the best feedback. Now, there are plenty of jackwagons in the world that have no filter, and they'll just be negative and critical and kind of awful sometimes, no matter who's at the table. But in general, people like to be kind. They like to be nice. Just make sure that you have the confidence and the security in yourself to hear the whole truth, to hear the absolute unbridled truth about your game, because it might get kind of ugly. Sometimes it might be a little more critical than you thought it would be. So just kind of be aware of that going in. But anyway, letting them think that it's your friend's game that you're testing can be super helpful in getting good feedback. So there you go. Those are my best 5 1/4 tips on running better playtests. But let me know your best playtesting tips in the comments. And if you want to hear all my tips on how to become a better game designer, be sure to check out this video. It's literally everything I could think of when it comes to how to become a better game designer. It's a little bit long, but it's definitely worth your time. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.